Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
You know, I was amazed at last week on Friday when I host the Infowars Nightly News and I played a bunch of videos. I covered a bunch of news clips explaining why exactly I feel that the left is responsible for the violence that is breaking out in America right now and eventually would lead to a civil war. It amazed me how much I left out, how much I forgot. I couldn't believe how much I left out of that report. Huge things said by government representatives, said on the streets of America. And we're going to play another video that highlights some of the things that I forgot, as well as illustrate how it's the left that is causing violence. But here's a story on Infowars.com by Kellen McBreen. Colonel Shaffer warns of bloody civil war, societal collapse. If the government doesn't stop violence from the left, the right will inevitably retaliate. There's an amazing full circle operation happening right now. It's happening in America. It's happening in Europe. We'll cover it in Europe in a second. But right now in America, and again, just like the way we've been covering radical Islamic terror, we've also been covering the police state. So we warned about the police state. We saw the signs of the coming police state. We saw them doing all of their drills, showing you the police state and how they would be bringing that to the streets of America with incidents like the Mike Brown, hands up, don't shoot, and the Ferguson riots. But now we have come full circle and the left is going full out violence in the streets. Incidents like Berkeley, incidents like rushing Donald Trump when he is speaking on a podium, assassination attempts against Donald Trump and representatives of the Republican Party. So it's gone hot for the violent leftists, not even to mention all of the people that get brutalized by these violent radical leftists in the streets. But Colonel Shaffer makes an interesting point when he says if the government doesn't stop violence from the left, the right will inevitably retaliate. Well, that's the question then, isn't it? What does he mean that if the government doesn't stop violence from the left? That's the police state, folks. That's the police state. Now, I don't want a police state. I don't want to live under martial law. I don't want to live in a state of emergency like they are in Paris for the last 2 years. That's not what I'm interested in. But the left wants a civil war because they're not going to get what they want, and that's Donald Trump to be removed from office, or if they could somehow just have Donald Trump never get elected. Obviously, that's not possible either. But this is the reality that the left lives in, so they're never going to be happy. And they're going to continue to get more violent every day that Trump is in office trying to make this country great again. Every day the mainstream news powers up their broadcast of propaganda against President Trump. Every day, mindless vassals like the man that tried to assassinate Steve Scalise are going to be triggered to pull violence out. So Colonel Shaffer makes an interesting point here, and it's one that sinks into me, unfortunately, more every day. And I think more and more, just to all of us, it's sinking in more and more every day. Now, here is a video, again, showing you just exactly what I'm talking about with violent liberal rhetoric and the threats to the president going hot in the streets of America, causing a civil war.
We can't just do rallies. We have to fight back. There will be casualties on both sides. There will be, because people have to die to make a change in this world.
That's a liberal.
I want you to
a liberal
argue
Trump
with
hater.
them and get in their face. And
the press always asks me, don't I wish I were debating him?
Get in my face, Obama, huh?
High school, I could take him behind the gym.
I wonder what Biden would do to him behind the gym.
Is fight in Congress, fight in the courts,
Probably try
fight
to
in the
kiss him.
streets, fight online, fight at the ballot box. And now there's the momentum to be able to do this.
Well, Trey Gowdy ought to have his ass kicked.
I had a dream the other night about
that I was playing golf with Donald Trump, and I was standing beside him with a club in my hand, and I was, considering my options when I suddenly woke up. It was one of those dreams where you want to just get back
His
to
options,
sleep so you can finish it.
For some reason, I don't think he's talking about playing the dog leg or the sand wedge.
The same ice pick that I murdered Donald Trump in the same night with.
Oh, that's nice.
And he's a bitch, and he can suck my
What's on your head? Is that a skunk on his head?
Day of the week and give him a Louisville Slugger.
This is by Mark Dice again.
If I catch you, I'm going to kill you, bitch. I want you to know these guns are real, bitch. It's real. Your daughter.
So
your
this
wife,
again, I was just amazed after Friday. I thought that I covered all the violence against Trump, or all the calls for violence against Trump from liberal media, and I left so much out.
Individuals who have banded together, ordinary people who simply saw what needed to be done and came together and supported those ideals, who have made the difference. They've marched, they've bled. Yes, some of them have died. This is hard. Every good thing is.
That's Loretta Lynch,
We can do this.
who's currently not cooperating with FOIA requests.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Who's responsible, folks? Who's responsible? If this civil war goes hot in the United States of America, who is responsible? It's liberal media, folks. It's liberal media. And it's leftists that are falling for the fake news that comes out of the liberal media. Now, this is our problem in America. This is how the Civil War is being strewn about in America. Ultimately, they would love to see a police state brought in. That's what Obama really wants. He doesn't really care as much about a Trump impeachment. As long as they got that police state, I think as soon as they get Trump out, he'd be happy. But this is what we're dealing with in America. Now, let's look at Europe. Now, you had another attack today in Paris. A man goes up in the car, rams a police car. The car then explodes, and there's all kinds of handguns and gas and all sorts of stuff in this terrorist car. I guess he hasn't been dubbed a terrorist yet, but don't worry, folks. Just like every other story that comes out, it'll come out that he was yelling Allahu Akbar before he did this. They don't want to report on it yet, but they will. And so, what is that an illustration of? The clash of civilizations where Muslim people or refugees move into westernized cultures and cannot assimilate. And this is what multiculturalism has brought to Europe. So this goes on in Paris, and this is just a regular thing in Paris now. They've been in a state of emergency for 2 years. So they're just used to that by now. You wake up in Monday on Paris, oh, another terror attack. Isn't that nice? But you've also got what happened in London today. Now, it's interesting because you've got somebody who goes down and is now trying to ram down Muslim people who were leaving in a mosque. Now, there's a bunch of stuff that's still being investigated about this. A very strange story. Honestly, the story is tough for me to report on right now because there's a lot of things that don't make sense. But then you have the guy allegedly laughing at the Muslims as he was getting hauled off in the police van. We've never had a story where the guy actually is somehow he gets out of his van and is with the people. I don't know how. Again, a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. We haven't seen any footage of any of this, just footage of a bunch of police on the scene. So there are a lot of questions being raised, but this is what they want. See, they bring in the multiculturalism. They bring in people that can't assimilate or have no interest in assimilate, or they're never taught to assimilate, or they're refugees, or they genuinely hate these countries and their governments and their people for doing nothing about the injustices that have been going on in the Middle East for decades. So they come here and they commit acts of terror. This has been going on, folks. This is not a secret. Radical Islamic terror is very real. Doesn't mean all Muslims are bad people. But then this guy goes out after seeing wave after wave after wave of terror attack, and allegedly he goes out and tries to ram down some Muslim people in the streets. So immediately you have everybody racing to the scene saying, oh my gosh, this is the right's fault. This is conservatives' fault. These are the people that called for closed borders' fault, that said that these are the Islamophobes' fault. But it's amazing because you never see that response from the left when it's a radical Islamic terrorist. Now, I also had a very interesting thing about this too. What is the difference between a hate crime and a terror attack? Now, I have the definition here. A hate crime is a crime motivated by racial, sexual, or other prejudice, typically one involving violence. A terrorist, a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. I actually think I have a new twist on this. I think we have to change our rhetoric here. From now on, we should call it radical Islamic hate crimes. Okay? These should be dubbed hate crimes. These are people that are doing hate crimes against people in London, against people in America, who whatever it is they think is oppressing them or isn't going along with Sharia law or whatever religious belief they have, or for whatever other reason could be out there, they don't like the way the women are dressing. The terrorists in this situation are the governments that are opening the borders and bringing these people in, folks. Those are the terrorists. Those are the people with political means. At least that's how I feel about it. But let's go back in time just to recall the terrorist who was responsible for the event in, there was a terrorist, and I've lost my story here, but he was an imam at the Finsbury Mosque, and he was arrested, and he's currently being held in a jail in the United States of America because of his rhetoric at the Finsbury Mosque. So there's a history of radical Islamic hate crimes coming out of this mosque. Now, they've said to have cleaned up their act since then, but then you have this guy who apparently is a member of the conservatives or alt-right who wants to go and ram down Muslims. Still a hate crime, in my opinion, if that's what actually went down. But let's recall, terror attacks are part and parcel of living in a big city, claims the London mayor Sadiq Khan. Is he going to say the same about terrorism against Muslims? I'm just curious. If we have people from London mowing down people outside of mosques once a month, is that going to be part and parcel, Sadiq Khan? I wonder how he would feel about that. And Paul Joseph Watson highlighted all of the hypocrisies coming out of the left media coverage of this and the response from the government on Infowars.com. No hashtags, no vigils, no call for everyone just to unite and carry on as normal. No, that's right. It's demonize the right, demonize conservatives in politics. It's all their fault. And you even have J.K. Rowling, who goes as far as to actually blame Nigel Farage for this attack. Now, J.K. Rowling is the author of Harry Potter. How about the Harry Potter actress that was beaten and branded a prostitute by her brother after dating a man who was not a Muslim? Where was J.K. Rowling on that story? Harry Potter star beaten after meeting a non-Muslim man, called a slag, and threatened with death after she met a young man who is not a Muslim. That is according to a court statement, a Manchester Crown Court. So where was J.K. Rowling on that? Nowhere. And again, here's the story. I lost it earlier. Evil and barbaric hate preacher Abu Hamza to die in prison after he is sentenced to life for almost a dozen terror charges. Now, you can go down and read the story, and what you find out is that this was a radical hate preacher of radical Islamicism and a terrorist who preached at that church. Now, I'm not saying this has one thing to do with the other. I'm just pulling this story up because I think that it has a fair tie to this story, and nobody else seems to want to talk about it. Now, Theresa May actually got heckled about this. We'll just not play that video, but Theresa May got heckled outside for her hypocrisies, and her entire speech in response to this was so different than Theresa May's response to this was entirely different to the responses we see for radical Islamic hate crimes. It was immediate, it was quick, it was immediately to target this, claim it as that. Totally different story than what we see when it's a radical Islamic terror attack. There were also some other key words in the speech that she gave, but I don't even want to get into that now. Before we close out this segment, Google says it will do more to suppress terrorist propaganda. This is the overarching globalist agenda to come down and control the internet and use all of the hate speech on the internet that is driving all of these people to madness. It's all of it. It's all the hate speech, the left, the right. We need to bring it in. We need to censor it. But amazingly, somehow they miss this. YouTube regularly leaves Islamic State videos up for days and weeks. We've been highlighting this for over a year now. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. They provide a platform to radical Islamic hate crimes, yet they claim they want to censor the internet. It's not working.
I want to tell you about some of the products at InfowarsStore.com. We are under constant attack. You know it by now from the mainstream media. They're trying to attack us on every level. Now with the YouTube scandal, they're demonetizing our channels, which again takes a huge chunk out of our income, which is why we always appreciate and rely on you getting the products, because that's how we stay afloat. They can't get to us that way. They can't pressure you to not buy the products. They don't have that power. And that's why you're the key to this entire operation. We have Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste, bubblegum flavor just arrived at InfowarsStore.com. This is by listener request. Bubblegum flavored Super Blue toothpaste now available at InfowarsStore.com in limited supply. Again, if you're not using fluoride-free toothpaste by now, then you're absolutely insane. Harvard studies, it reduces IQ, it causes bone cancer. It's not great, let's just put it that way, and I've been using it for about, 15 years now? So you're gonna buy it anyway, why not buy it from us? It's in limited supply, but it is available at InfowarsStore.com with the new bubblegum flavor, Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste, and it supports this network, which is under constant demonization and attack, because we don't take big fat checks from George Soros. We don't get put on extremist list even though they want us to. That's how they're taking away the YouTube money. That's why we need your support more than ever, because we're not funded by giant corporations who are now pulling the plug on YouTube as they move it into a TV thing, a Netflix model, to drown out independent voices. So support us by getting the products at InfowarsStore.com.